Awesome. I am so glad you're here with me, Susan. This is so exciting to have this conversation with you. And I've had a couple of conversations with our contributors over the last couple of days. And what has been so exciting for me is actually seeing how we're using the analogy of climbing to really refer to how a lot of event planners have come through the last year and a half to 2 years. So I am excited to have this conversation with you because you have this unique ability to pull a business type of acumen. You've got that business sense, and you're tying in people, conversations, ways that people can talk to their people and communicate with the people in their organizations in ways that they're able to move forward and get results. So I'm really, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. Really excited to dive in a little bit this morning.
Totally my pleasure. I'm happy to be here, Lisa.
And you have something on your, I think it's Instagram. You've got the idea of being a people whisperer. Is that something that you have claimed for yourself? Where did that come from?
I certainly wasn't the person who coined the phrase. However, I just love it. It resonates with me in a sense that similar to the horse whisperer, we might be familiar with that. People, like animals, can't always express themselves most effectively. And we often don't even know what is going on within us to create a certain reaction to something. And so for me, it's about the people and what is truly at the root of what we're trying to achieve, what are we trying to communicate, and what is the problem that we're collectively trying to solve. And so if we can really understand one another, then I think we really can start to create some magic and some true potential.
And I love what you said in when you submitted what you wanted to put into the Moments issue. So this is, for those of you that are watching, this is the 10th issue of Moments. We're using the analogy of climb. For all of you that have been through the valley of discouragement, then you've moved to this base camp where you're trying to map out what's next. And now you're on that climb to what's next. Susan, what you have put into, and I just want to read a little bit what you've added here. So what you're giving us in this issue is some top tips that you would recommend when planners are looking to take their planning team's effectiveness to the next level. And we really couldn't be talking about a better way, I think, to start climbing, to look at our teams and the people that are surrounding us. I had a great conversation with a climber friend of mine yesterday, Philip. He was talking about this idea of having, when you're on the rock, or in his case on the ice, it is a solo activity, but you will have a partner. You're going to have someone that has your back, and to be able to climb with others. And so what you are bringing to the table, and really what I love about what you're bringing to this issue, is you're talking about the team aspect, the people aspect of not just as managers, but I would guess that you have conversations with peer to peer as well within a business. So could you tell us a little bit about your work and how that relates to what you've written for the magazine?
So what I really thought was relevant to your audience, Lisa, is about teams. And I know through knowing you and your objectives and what you're trying to achieve is always to have everyone excel. And so that's how I say reach that peak performance. And in order to be able to do that, first of all, we need to know ourselves. We need to understand how we react, how we speak, how we act in terms of our behavior. All of these things represent who we are and what we're thinking and what we're trying to achieve. And secondly, then, is to know the people on our team. And so, for example, if a team member is struggling, what is it that they are truly struggling with? And they may or may not have a good sense of what that challenge even is. And so how can we work together and figure out what is really going on with that person in order to bring up that peak performance and allow them to rise to what it is that you want to achieve as the leader of that group, and what does that person want to achieve in order for them to feel fulfilled as part of that team.
And when we talk teams, sometimes there is a team dynamic that gets in the way of allowing ourselves to rise, encouraging our other team members to rise. Not that you've written this in the article, but I'm so curious, because what would you find are some of those barriers to really supporting each other in the journey? Because I think we sometimes get caught up in where we are at, how we want that promotion, or how we're seen in a team. And then if we're managing a team, like so many that are reading the magazine and part of our community here in Candy, is they are managing the tasks and the timelines and the people that are getting these things done. And there is a certain amount of, I don't want to say just protectionistic, it's not that they're just protecting their role, but opening up to where the team is at. What have you found that those dynamics that might prevent somebody from actually leaning in, listening to their team, and looking at rising together?
Mm-hmm. Well, and the way you describe that, it makes me feel that quite often we could be in a stressful sort of environment, right? If timelines are happening and we need to deliver, and there's lots of players and stakeholders involved, then we would feel the pressure of that, especially if we were the ones that were needing to get the results at the end of the day. And so what can be happening in a time of additional stress is where we are really coming to our default personalities. And so I, for example, can be quite assertive and results driven, whereas someone on my team might be very caring and might lead with their heart. And so the way that they are functioning in their tasks and their responsibilities is going to be very different fundamentally from one another. And so first of all, we need to recognize that. And it's not that one is better than the other by any means. That's kind of the team magic that happens, is that when you have that variety and you truly let people speak their voice, we can imagine that that person coming from a heart-centered place is going to be very mindful and thoughtful of the other people involved, or how they might receive something, or have some great ideas around an additional touch or a special touch. Whereas somebody who's more results oriented might just be thinking about the timelines, for example, which is also important. And so we begin to see how the timelines married with the heart-centered approach, also combined with the maybe analytical approach of somebody else in the group, we combine these. And when we recognize that in each other and in ourselves, that's when we can start to speak and ask questions that really resonate with the other people on our team.
And what is the end result to that? Like when that starts happening and there starts to become an understanding of each other, where you're recognizing that in someone else, you're also recognizing, I would guess, you're very self-aware. So you're understanding how you're showing up as well. What do you see when that's working well? What are those results that you're starting to see in the team?
So, that sweet spot, we've all been there before, when all the cylinders are firing and we're wanting to get at work, right? We want to wake up, we want to jump out of bed, we're willing to work a little bit longer, and it doesn't feel like a hardship. It feels like fun.
Yes.
And so we're accomplishing the goals and we're having fun doing it. I'm not sure that there's anything better.
It's beautiful. We actually call that, I was saying to somebody the other day, that's a candy moment, when you recognize sort of the sweet spot and that things are working the way that they can work. It doesn't happen all the time. We don't always have that incredible space where we can live there all the time. But when you know that you have the skills, the ability, you've got a dedicated team that's leaning in, and then you have that result that you're actually looking, celebrating at the end of the day, you're really celebrating that things have come together. And what I love about what you're saying is an event team can be like a little microcosm of what's going on for a wider team. So that might be something that people are looking at. The deadline, like you said, so there's a tight deadline. We've got a lot of tasks to do. And when we start to see that working really well, when I work with clients, we start to see that filtering up a little bit into some of those other people situations, the communication that's happening broader within the organization. Sometimes systems start to translate up into how things could be run more efficiently. I bet you that's something when we talk about the results, it's not just getting your support, because this is your work, this is what you do, I bet they start to see things that have residual results over time that start to naturally happen, because they enjoy the feeling of things working well, and everyone's not just getting along, but that they're really understanding how to communicate.
Yes. So I feel that it isn't just a coincidence. It's not an accident when the sweet spot happens. It is something that we have complete, I say control, but maybe in parenthesis, we have the power to choose. And how is it that we are going to be aware enough of ourselves, and what are we going to choose to apply in that moment? So I may have that results-oriented approach as a default place, but that's not to say that I also don't have the heart center as well as maybe the analytical thinking. And knowing that allows me to choose in that moment what is required to apply. And so I feel that when that all starts to happen, that's when we can excel. And when all of those systems and those priorities are really starting to connect and work together. It's amazing.
It is amazing. And I'm so glad that the readers of Moments are going to get that chance to read more of what you're going to be offering in the magazine. And how can they get a hold of you? This is, I think, something that we are all dealing with in the moment. So this is a current challenge for many of us that are in event planning right now. I think it'd be amazing for people to be able to connect with you and actually have that support right away. How can people find you and get a hold of you now?
Well, I'm at susanmcguire.ca, and I'm currently going through a bit of an adjustment on my website. So I'm super excited about that to come in the next week or so. I'm also on LinkedIn at Susan McGuire, and on Instagram would be great for a follow at Susan McGuire People Whisperer.
Awesome. And we did talk about what people whisper. So for all of you that want to learn more what that means, connect with Susan for sure. And if you have time on November the 10th, this is 7:00 Mountain Time. We have the launch of the Moments Magazine Climb issue coming out. You can get your free ticket. We're going to have a lot of fun with somebody that you know very well, Susan. Your husband, Pete, is going to be speaking on that evening as well. And you can get your tickets at candyconsulting.ca/moments-magazine. And we're going to be talking to some of the climbers, some of the event planners that have made it through this last year, and just having some fun celebrating what this means to really be on the climb together. So thank you so much, Susan, for being with me today, sharing a little bit of a teaser on what's coming up in the magazine and how people can get a hold of you. Just so glad you were here today.
I love it. It's all my pleasure. Thank you, Lisa. And I look forward to celebrating with you.
Awesome. We'll talk to you soon.